is what to expect within Drupal 8. So this conference, there's a whole lot of sessions if you've seen things about Drupal 8 so far. So you'll be hearing those words a lot throughout today. But what is this going to mean to you as a site builder and as a developer and someone that's working with Drupal on a day-to-day basis? So I want to first see what type of people we have in the room today, just so I know a little bit more of how to gear things today for us. So what type of roles do we have here today? How many of you are actually full-on Drupal module developers, hardcore development people? Got a couple of you. Awesome. And then how many of you are going to would consider yourselves more as a front-end developer, a themer, site builder, something of that nature? Excellent. And then anybody that's kind of day-to-day site administrators, you're in the system, just working through things like that. Awesome. So that's a good mix, and it's really good to see that because partly of what I'm going to be talking about today is going to be geared toward you as a site builder and you as a front-end site builder and developer as well. Because mainly a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about today is what we're going to do in Drupal 8, what you're going to see in Drupal 8 as improvements for you as a site builder. One of the things, for more of the hardcore development stuff, you're going to want to stick around in this room afterwards because Larry Garfield right down here is going to be presenting more of that development side of Drupal 8 coming up right after me today. So we're going to focus this session more on your site building, what's new in Drupal 8, what things you can expect from there. So a little bit about myself real quick. Mike gave a little bit. I'm a senior developer at MediaCurrent for the past 2 years. Before that, I worked for 5 years up in Jacksonville as, with the Florida Times Union up there, Morris Communications, running all their newspaper properties. One of the things that I specialize in is mainly the media publishing industry, so newspaper sites, media sites, things of that nature, and kind of understanding the specific requirements that these print publications and news outlets have. So that's kind of my background. I've worked with all ends of Drupal, but for the most part right now I'm focusing on your site module development and also kind of architecting and what you've got in the site for building on those media platform sites. So moving on to a little bit more about what you're really looking to see in Drupal. When you first load up Drupal 8, you're going to notice this is what you see as soon as you install Drupal 8 fresh on your site. Right off the bat, you're going to see that we don't see a whole lot of changes in comparison to what you're used to seeing in Drupal 7 when you first installed a site. The basic page layout is going to look the same, but before we even get to this point, we're going to actually have to go through the installation process, and that's where our changes immediately start happening. You'll notice our installation page now has a whole new fresh coat of paint on it. So it looks much nicer, a little bit more theming with it, and things like that. But one of the things you'll notice right away is that you now have this option to choose your language. And before you would be able to choose your language, but in that case, it was about all you did. Now you choose your language, Drupal's going to automatically go out. Why is that not clicking? There we go. So you'll choose your language, Drupal's going to automatically go out for you, the installer, download that language pack for you, and put your entire installation system into that language for you. So in this case, we're in Ukrainian here, and it'll go out, do all that stuff for you, and you're ready to go from there. So once we're installed, we're going to log into the site, and you'll see some more magic start appearing for us. Immediately, one of the things you're going to notice is a new administration menu at the top of the screen. So you'll see now gone is that little tiny administration with all these little words, structure, and configuration, and reports, and things like that. Now I've got just 3 simple menus linked to the top. We've got a manage, shortcuts, and admin. So right from there, when we go ahead and click into this manage link at the top, that's when you'll see coming out your regular links that you're used to seeing on Drupal 7 before. You'll notice again it's a new coat of paint, a little bit nicer look to it. Another thing you're going to see obviously missing is that modules link that you're used to seeing before on any other version of Drupal. As much as you might have heard about Drupal 8 and the radical changes we've been making in Drupal 8, we're not getting away from the modules terminology. It's still there. They're still called modules, but it's a usability issue. In terms of a lot of what Drupal 8 we're trying to do is on the front end is getting better usability for the users. So instead of calling it modules now on the administration, you're going to have it called extend to let people know this is where you go to really add more power to your Drupal site. So if there's one thing, though, from Drupal 7 we wished might have been missing if it wasn't modules, would be our old friend from Drupal 7, the overlay module. All of you have seen it before. Always probably had a big hateful relationship. It was probably the first thing you did when you installed a Drupal site is went in, uninstalled that sucker, and went from there. No more. Overlay module is gone. May you rest in peace. Nobody will ever really forget you or remember you, really. So from there, After overlay is gone, one of the next things we have is mobile from the start within Drupal 8. And this is a really great thing. The mobile initiative team, part of the Drupal 8 process, just in terms of, to give you a little background on what the development changed for the Drupal 8 lifecycle, is instead of everyone kind of working on everything at once, we broke up the Drupal 8 development into individual initiative teams. So one of those initiatives was this mobile initiative, and that was trying to get Drupal 8 very much mobile from the start. So as you make your browser window smaller, you'll see that everything's a responsive design right from the start. Our administration menu shrinks down as you get smaller. Instead of our new icons that we had in the code of paint provide a secondary use for us when we get down to mobile, that you can use those icons to show where we're clicking. And now all the administration interfaces within Drupal are mobile friendly now for you as well. One of the big things that we had in terms of our mobile themes for administration in the past was well and good, and you could kind of get away with working on it on your mobile device. But one of the biggest problems in your administration interfaces are these right here, your big tables. Drupal loves tables for displaying content. It's a great way to see different content, things like that. So in Drupal 8, what's happened to address this issue is a responsive tables API. And basically what that's letting you do within your Drupal interfaces now is define priority levels to your columns. So basically what you can do is as you're shrinking down the browser window, your table is going to see that certain columns are prioritized for mobile, and the ones that aren't prioritized are going to drop off and disappear from your content window for you. So there's two constants. This is the most code I'm going to get into today. How you're going to define these to do it is when you're creating a table in code, there's something called a header array. And basically in that, you're going to be defining a class on your tables with two constants, responsive priority low and responsive priority medium. And what that's going to do for us is shrink down so that now as we shrink down to a tablet size, you'll notice that the update time and our author columns have now disappeared. If I go back, we used to have author and updated. Those are now gone. And as you continue going down to the mobile size, they'll still go on for you as well. So it's one of those cool things in terms of being able to help really push that responsiveness of our sites. So far, really totally gnarly. We can fully edit our sites via mobile. That's an awesome thing for the mobile initiative team. I don't know if anyone here has worked on that team or not, so if you are, way to go. If not, go find those people and really thank them because it's a really cool thing for us. But this is only going to do so much for us in terms of what we're doing in terms of our site building and day-to-day administration. What about streamlining and helping out some of the other content editing experiences in Drupal? Because I think all of us, if we've used Drupal before, can understand that there's a little bit of problems with a lot of the different content editing experiences we have in Drupal. So another initiative was on our content editing experience. And you'll see right from the start, when you go to your node edit screen that you're used to seeing on any other version of Drupal, you'll see things kind of change around. And Contrib has done this for us a little bit in the past and other things, but now it's right this way, out of core, straight out of the box. So you'll see that all these vertical tabs we used to have at the very bottom of our node edit screen when creating content have now been moved over to the right side of our screen. What this is doing is just using our screen real estate a little bit to a better ability at that point, and also replicates what a usability issue that a lot of site builders were already used to in terms of that other system we don't really want to name that starts with a W and ends with some pressing. They've kind of been doing a similar style to this in the past, and it's proven really well for them. We were talking a little bit about this last night. We've stolen a couple things from them. We could shamelessly say this is pretty much a steal from them, but at the same time, they've stolen stuff from us, so it all works out. We help each other out. Besides moving those vertical tabs to the right and refining some of that content editing, you also notice way down here in the very bottom is we have, instead of just a generic save button, you have these two options now. There's a drop down there. You have a save and keep publish and a save and unpublish option now, or save as unpublished. And what this is doing for us is it's allowing something that's come up in a lot of times with us that have used Drupal a lot before, kind of have felt that we have known what the save button does in the past. But if you've ever taken a Drupal site and done some training with users that aren't used to it, a lot of times what you see is someone sees save and they're like, well, what does that really mean? Is this going to go live to the site now? Is this just a draft? Like, what do I do with this? So this takes some of that ambiguity out, and now you have an option to say save and publish it, save as unpublished. Either way, makes it a little bit better content and experience, just some better usability for us. In the Contrib space, a lot of what we're seeing today is things that have been happening in Contrib in the past. This is replacing what we've seen in the past with the publish button module in the past. So continuing with our content and experience, there's another initiative called the Spark project that's been in Drupal 8. And what that did for us is one of the things that it brought to us was a full WYSIWYG experience to our content editing experience. So whether or not, for a lot of the hardcore developers in here, you're probably groaning at this right now because it's going to cause a lot of problems for you. But at the same time, for our content editing experience, it's a really cool awesomeness for you and a lot of awesome sauce. So no more of the days of trying to teach your content creators what a strong tag is or how to open and close HTML tags, things like that. Now you can immediately just highlight some text, make it bold, and go from there. In addition, we've got inline images that you can put into your content area, which there's a whole other realm of thought about putting images into your CK editors. But so now one of the things we can easily do is our kittens can put their own selfies into their content area, as well as adding caption capability into that as well, which is a really nice thing. It's something that a lot of the WYSIWYG editors that you've seen when we've had in Drupal 7 before didn't have the ability to add those captions in. It was something you really had to work on to do. CK Editor was the WYSIWYG of choice in Drupal 8. There was some talk about some other ones in the past, but that ended up winning out in the end. So, which is probably a good thing because that's probably one of the biggest ones out on the market right now. So WYSIWYG and Core is really awesome for better or worse for all of us as developers in terms of site builders as well. But also a cool new thing in Drupal 8 is inline editing. And this is a fun new feature that, as far as when I first heard about it, it's kind of like, whatever. It's kind of cool, but I wasn't really that impressed about it. One of the cool things, though, when you think about it from a site builder's perspective and a content editor's perspective, is one of the things I've heard from a lot of people is, why do I have to go in and click this edit button and go to this really long form with all this information here when I just want to change the title of a node? So now we have inline editing abilities within Drupal 8. What that's going to do for you is you have this little pencil icon on any of your content areas. This is on a node view or even on your home page or things like that. You have this little pencil icon, and you can choose to quick edit or edit. And basically, if you're used to Drupal 7, this pencil icon is similar to the contextual links. We used to have a little gear icon that you go in from there. Now, instead of just having edit delete that brings you to the full form, you're going to have this quick edit option. And what that's going to do for you is bring these blue boxes up around content on your page. And when you click into one of those blue box areas, in this case, I've used this example, clicking on our image, I can now jump right in, remove that image, edit that image, and not have to go to a full content editing screen. I can click right there. As soon as I click the X to leave this, that content immediately updates on the screen, and you can see your changes right there in line with the rest of the page. So it's a cool thing for our content editors in terms of what they're able to do. So in terms of our content editing changes, we also have a little bit easier content and structure management. So that's a lot of what your day-to-day users are going to be using, what we've gone through so far. What about when we're building our site in terms of actually doing a lot of the site building work? Well, a lot of the materials we had for managing fields in Drupal 6 and 7, they're still existing in 8, and they look very similar, so we're not going to go into a lot about those. But there's a couple new options that I wanted to go over a little bit. One of those is managing form displays. So one of the things you have now is we always have had our manage fields option and our manage display option, but now we have this option to manage our form display. And this is a really nice thing because anytime we've wanted to do this in the past, we've had to go out and create a custom module. We had to do some form alter hooks. We had to do a lot of coding to make some of these changes happen. Now what we're doing is we're allowing our forms to define different changes. So as you see with our body copy, we can define our number of rows we want for our text area. We can put any placeholder text in and take advantage of some of the HTML5 capabilities, as well as adding in how many rows we want for our summary. So this is a great thing that comes up a lot of times with your editors and things like that. You might have a text area that you really want some long content in, but you don't need 10 rows of display, especially when it comes to summaries. Summaries are only going to be 60 characters up to like 200 characters. That's only going to be 2 lines. Why do you need this giant area of text area for that? So this is a great way to now take advantage of that. In addition to the HTML5 of the placeholder text, having that built into Drupal 8, all of our form fields and elements are all now based on HTML5 as well. So if you put an integer field onto a content type, when you go to edit that now, you're going to have nice options to show that this is an integer. If you went to edit that on your phone, it's going to bring up your keypad instead of a keyboard to go and enter that information in. So some great new stuff to make our usability a little bit easier. In terms of the rest of the functionality, in terms of manage fields and manage display, everything's very similar, and even this form display is very similar as well. One of the things you have now, though, is also GUI customization of your view modes. And if you haven't used view modes before, I highly suggest you start learning them. If you're still going through and creating a view and adding 20 fields to it and then trying to theme those fields all together, start using view mode. It's going to make your life a lot easier. It's also going to, one thing it's going to let you do is separate more of your actual content and content selection from your display. So one of the things we've had view modes in the past in Drupal 7. It was the new thing then. But a lot of the control over it in terms of creating them, you had to go to contrib space, whether through display suite module or some other contrib modules to be able to add new view modes through the GUI interface. Otherwise, you had to do them through code. Now this is all built into core. You can add a new content view mode right away, edit any of the view modes you have, and each different entity type within Drupal has their own view modes set up for them. Besides just the regular view modes, though, one of the great things we have is now the ability to create a view mode for our form displays as well. So something like the user register form. In the past, you've always had to do a lot of extra coding to get changes made to that. You can now create a view mode for that in terms of what you want to do in that situation. So out of all, we've talked a lot so far about a lot of the different contrib modules that core's removed for us. But there's one that every site's been built that really everyone's used at some point. Every site probably has it. We try to build sites without it, but everyone always seems to fall back and go and get it. And it's one that all of you already know about, views. That is now in core. Since day one of Drupal 8, the development, that was a big thing to get into core, and now it's there. Basically, one of the great things about it is you're going to see it hasn't really changed much. Again, the new theming look to it looks a little nicer. But for the most part, all the functionality is exactly the same. Underneath, though, it's changed to meet all the new APIs of Drupal 8. Everything has been built since they've been working on this from the start, rather than having to come into Drupal 8 now and try and figure out, all right, I've got all this tons of code that we need to convert now to the new code base within Drupal 8. They've been building it along the way. And I believe there's a great thing on the Drupal Easy podcast about this, talking about that and some of the issues around that, and that you were able to just build it along the way, changing individual pieces little by little rather than making a huge change all at one time. So views is actually really stable right now in core of Drupal 8. So it's a great thing now to be able to give us options. Obviously, I was just yelling about doing fields. This is the content view that's core to Drupal 8, so it has fields. Normally, if you did use the view mode thing that I was mentioning, you would just have up here an option in not a table view. You'd just choose your view mode, and this fields area would not have any options under it. So I'm running through a lot of this stuff really quickly, but one of the things that we have in Drupal 8 as well is a new theming layer called Twig. This is a very exciting thing for Drupal 8. There's a lot of the front-end developers and people are very excited about this. Previously in Drupal 7 and other versions, we've had kind of this bad child of PHP template running before. Basically, the idea originally was that it was going to be we're going to use something stock that everyone else is already using, and we're going to build that and use that for Drupal. Well, through the years, PHP template doesn't really resemble what PHP template resembled out of the box anymore. It's been Drupalized, to say a word for that. So basically what's happened now is that we're getting rid of PHP template and going to the Twig layer. I'm not going to go into much about that, but Jen Lampton will be talking in here at 1 o'clock in this auditorium all about the new Twig layer and theming layer from that. One of the great things, though, for that from us as a developer side of things is that it's going to add a whole lot more security to our theming layer. That's been an area in Drupal in the past that's been very problematic in terms of security. So it's going to be a really cool thing on that side. So in terms of advanced Drupal 8, there's a whole lot of new stuff that we want to go through. Just touch on really quickly. I don't know when the session ends. I think we got about 10 minutes left. So I want to save some time for questions too. So things about advanced Drupal 8. One of the big new things is web services, and this is another one of the initiatives. This is really, really cool about being able to let your content be able to send and receive to different mobile and web applications, providing an interface to send your content out, receive content, basically an API layer for Drupal built into the core. Really awesome stuff. I believe you're going to be talking about this some in yours, are you, Larry? Not a bit? Okay, never mind then. I will scratch that note then. A little bit. Weren't you on the team for it?
I led that team.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, awesome. So I just made a bad assumption apparently that Larry would be talking about that. But either way, it's a really cool thing. I highly suggest looking into it a lot more. Very cool stuff. One of the great things that Drupal 8's allowing us to do with some of the really techie, nerdy things is in the past you always had different endpoints for things. Well, now with this built on top, you can request node 1 through a REST request, and you're actually going to get JSON back rather than having to go through a different interface and different endpoints and things. So it's some really cool stuff. One of the great things that web service will allow us to do also is start going to that method of NPR's method and mantra of it of create once, publish everywhere, which is a great blog post on a list apart the other day about this type of thing. So it's a really cool thing to look into as well as you start looking at more stuff. Configuration Management Initiative is another awesome one that I'm really excited about. Currently out of the box in Drupal 8, what this is going to do is it's going to allow us to package up things within Drupal 8 and move it from site to site. So move it from your development environment over to your production environment. In Drupal 7, this is something that Features is doing for us. Features will still exist in Drupal 8 as far as I know, because CMI is doing a lot of really cool stuff for us. But what their main thing right now, to where we're at right now, as far as I've been able to follow with it, is that we're basically moving all the configuration at once with configuration management. But what we've added is a lot of really cool ground level architecture for expanding on this in the contrib space. So being able to build upon that and making more refined features, like features could probably build upon this to really move things between sites a lot easier for us. And that's going to let us store all of our configuration in YAML files and put those into our version control system like Git and send those out to another server and really make things better. This is a really big plus for Drupal in terms of making a lot of strides in the enterprise market. This is pretty much a direct result of how much Drupal has grown recently in the enterprise market. If you're looking at enterprise markets, they do not like to have people touching a database on production except for content. All that configuration needs to be version controlled and managed through a release. CMI is going to lay the groundwork for us to get that going on a much bigger scale. So that's really cool. Symfony. Basically, in Drupal 8, one of the things we did is a lot of the core code base of Drupal in general was ripped out in favor of using a proven system that already exists on the market. So Symfony's been doing a lot of the same stuff that Drupal's been doing through the years in terms of user permissions, menu routing, things like that. Symfony's going to take a lot of that burden off of our Drupal core team and be able to do a lot of stuff on it from there. This is more, like I said, we're not going to get into a lot of the real deep reasons of that, but one of the great things here is that it's going to put Drupal 8 to a much more modern and extensible code base. Again, you could argue this for better or worse. There's been a lot of discussion about this in terms of Drupal moving to a much more object-oriented code base due to the Symfony changes for the most part. But one of the things I'm looking forward to the most on that is having things in this space and having things talked about. I think we were talking about this last night. Was actually being able to extend modules and contrib modules. If they didn't put hooks in the right places, now you can actually extend that out to your own module, not have to go and hack a contrib module or hack a core module. You can do all that work in your own module. Forms API layers completely changed in Drupal 8. There's going to be a class wrap system now. Lots of fun stuff there that it'll offer us. Be a little confusing to learn at first. I haven't touched a lot with it yet, but it's going to be a really cool thing to see in the future just in terms of advanced Drupal 8 functionality. PHP unit testing is now in Drupal 8, and again, looking to move ourselves towards standards instead of trying to make our own systems. We were using simple tests before. PHP unit is going to add a lot of options for that in terms of our testing engines and things within Drupal. If you are a hardcore developer in here, you should definitely be doing some test development and working on your modules with testing as well. PHP unit will help you with that side of things. And migration for updates. Drupal 8 is going to ditch the typical update structure from our core versions and major version upgrades, such as coming from 7 to 8. One of the great things this is going to allow us to do is go into not necessarily just taking what you had before and moving it to the new architecture. You're going to be able to build your site how you want it on the new layer and then migrate that old content in. So you're not stuck with bad architectural decisions from 7 as you move on to 8. Melissa is going to be talking about this today in this room at 3:30. So if you're interested in that, I highly suggest come and see her session as well. It's going to be awesome. So I won't want to go into more of that there. So it's going to be pretty darn legendary for Drupal 8, especially in terms of the front-end editing experience and things that we're making strides in for getting our users set up. So by default, the real question that everyone starts to think about once we show all these new features is, I keep hearing this Drupal 8 for so long. Everyone's been talking about it for a long time. When are we going to see this ready for live work? When's it going to be released? Well, by the normal mantra of Drupal, the mantra is always when it's ready, it's going to be ready. When there's no critical bugs left, no critical tasks, that's when we're going to be ready. But in terms of that, getting to that point, all of you can help get us to that point even faster with that. So this is where my shameless plug comes in a little bit. You should contribute back to the community if you have not already. How many in here have actually contributed back to the community in the past? Not bad. All right. We got about maybe 30%, 30-40% of you. Awesome. Well, your chance now is coming up to help with that. Right here at DrupalCamp, Florida, you can come tomorrow back here, somewhere in one of these rooms. We're going to be doing a core contribution sprint, which is basically core mentoring, and showing you how you can start getting involved. No matter what skill level you have, show you how you can get involved within the Drupal community. I think there's also going to be a couple satellite sprints if anyone's used to already doing development work. If you want to work on a specific project, there'll be some sprints going on as well around that. That's going to be from 9 to 4 tomorrow. We forgot about daylight savings time, so it is going to be 9 to 4, but at the same time, we normally start at 8 a.m. This year we thought, no one shows up at 8 a.m. Let's push it an hour later. Now, so much for that with daylight savings time. Basically going to be the same thing. In addition to our core sprint that we're going to have here tomorrow, is on a normal basis, we have what's called core office hours within the Drupal community. This is based around IRC, the IRC chat system. And basically what it's letting you do is come in and talk about and see where you can contribute through. So we're going to cover a lot of this stuff tomorrow on how to get started. But this is a great way to talk to other people in the community, have someone assign you a task, have someone guide you a little bit into what you should start looking at to figure this task out, and get yourself contributing. There's nothing better when you're contributing to core and to Drupal. One of the great things is your patches that you submit. If you've been part of that, you get into the Git log of Drupal. And it's always fun to do a fun test to see how many people committed, how many patches you have, things like that. And it's always great to see people their first time getting a patch submitted to Drupal core and that smile on their face when they see that Git log come out with their patch in there. So that happens twice a week. Mondays is more for the European crowd, but if you're a late bird, it's Mondays at 10 p.m. Wednesdays is at 12 p.m. Those are the time for daylight savings time. When it's not daylight savings time, they're going to change an hour because the times are based in UTC time. In addition, if you want to learn a little bit more of other ways to get involved and how to start building things up, you can check out the DrupalLadder.org. And what this is going to do is kind of guide you through the different steps of building up to Drupal contribution. I believe it starts out with writing issue summaries and moving on to editing a patch, doing rerolls, and then keep moving yourself up the ladder into more complex tasks as you learn more things. So it's about 9:40 now. We have about 5 minutes left. I was going to do a couple live demos, but I think I'm going to just open it up for questions instead at this point, unless there's something in particular you're really looking to see or hear a little bit more about. And also I have a gift card for 1 month of buildamodule.com. I've got to decide how to give this out to somebody here. So let's see. I'm trying to think of a fun question we could ask. Anybody has ideas here? For Drupal 8, what did I not cover that you might know about? Well, let's go through the presentation. Which editor was used for the WYSIWYG within Drupal 8? Well, yeah, okay, awesome. I think I might have another one too. I'll see if we can get another one for you. Got that for you when you come back up. So any questions about today? Also, shameless plug as well. I forgot to do this at the beginning like I always do. Tweet any of your questions, complaints, suggestions, hatred about my session to @KBasarab. You can also find me on IRC at KBasarab and across all the networks, Drupal.org, all that stuff if you're looking for any ways to get in touch with me. I always like to hear your either praise or hate about sessions through Twitter from there. So questions about what we've talked about so far today. I know there's a whole lot of stuff, and I feel like I was rushing right through it, but. Mm-hmm.
What happened to the panels in core?
I'm not sure exactly where it fell off, but it's not happening right now. Just at the basic level. The panels will still exist in the contrib space, and it's going to make some cool stuff as well. Do you have more information on it?
It got about a third of the way through.
Yeah.
What I was trying to do. It was nominally called the Blocks and Layout Initiative. It got through the blocks part. And layouts will still be happening for fit in contrib. We're trying to line up some last dominoes to make it easier. But beam module, little panel panes, node block, a couple of other modules that try to make blocks actually useful will not exist in Drupal 8 because blocks in core are actually useful.
Yeah.
So their API is a lot nicer, the capabilities are a lot nicer. We'll talk a bit about that in my session later.
Yeah, blocks are basically entities now, so you can do all the same stuff you do with content through blocks now, which is really awesome. I know the patch for that was enormous to get that in. It was ridiculous. Albert, you did some review on that, didn't you? It was crazy. Hey, Jay.
Could you talk a little bit about the overhead in D8 compared to D7 and whether we have to beef up our hosting environments?
So there's a whole lot of code changes to Drupal 8, and there's a whole lot of new stuff in there. I don't believe the performance requirements are changing any for Drupal 8, but one of the cool things I've noticed just in terms of working with Drupal 8 on my local environment things so far is things, obviously it's a new spin up, and anytime you do something new, things are much faster. But there's a lot more refinement in the code base in terms of how things are working. But there is also a whole lot more files now to find things at with auto-loading classes and things like that. So in a way, it's a little bit easier in terms of management because your code for each individual file is going to be very short. But at the same time, you're also getting, in terms of the performance implications, you should actually see some improvements, but there is a lot of work still being done on refining those and making a lot of performance increases performance increases within Drupal 8. I believe Twig had a whole lot of performance issues at first, and they've been working on really, now that we've got APIs in place, there's a lot of things are working. Now's the time to really start focusing in and refining that and getting the performance stuff in place for it. I do know, just in terms of installing, about a month and a half ago, I installed Drupal 8 locally. It took me about 30 minutes or so to install all the modules and everything. And when I did it for this session the other day, it took less than 5 minutes to get everything up and running. So there definitely are improvements happening all the time. Anyone else? Lee?
Yeah. I keep seeing different minimum PHP versions for 8. So 5.3, now it's 5.4.
I think it has gone up to 5.4, yeah. Yeah, because we're at 5.5 now, so by the time 8 comes out, you're talking another 6 months at least down the road, so we want to make sure to, and also IE support's been dropped in 8 for the most part. IE 6 support, IE 7 support, and I believe in IE 8 support's all been dropped from Drupal 8, which is really exciting. I should have forgot, that should have been my first slide, what was I thinking? Exactly. I did have a note in here actually about the mobile initiative that's going to work across almost any normal human mobile device. So Windows will probably be excluded from that. They do work really well on the new versions, yeah. Anyone else? We got 2 minutes left. Awesome. Thank you guys for coming. Appreciate it. And like I said, I'll be out and about throughout the day today. Come see us at the booth if you want to talk any more about it. And stick around for Larry's session afterwards. It should be awesome.